Hello, and welcome to our last lesson. Hey, you can't just come in here. I was on air filming.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just delivering some flowers to...
Flowers, you say?
Yes, flowers. It's to a Miss Veronica Shanika.
That's me.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, flowers, how beautiful. Oh, he must be sorry. Oh, how sorry. He loves me. Oh, how beautiful.
Oh, sorry, Missy. Hi, I'll be going right now. Have a nice day.
Wow. Were you filming that, Mr. Cameraman? What an effect flowers have on people. Of course, they're beautiful. Their colors are bright and their smell has a sweet attraction. They are certainly one of nature's most beautiful things. But in nature, nothing is sommer marnet. There is a reason they are so beautiful. It is for their own survival. So, as I was trying to say, this is lesson 5, the final lesson in our biology series. Today, we are talking about the reproduction in plants. Our learning objectives are that learners, after watching this lesson, should be able to describe the structure and functions of the flower of a named dicotyledonous plant, explain pollination of flowers, distinguish between self-pollination and cross-pollination, and name agents of pollination. Welcome and enjoy the program with us.
Somebody got flowers.
Class, please settle down.
Miss Veronica, I must say your class looks awfully pretty with all these flowers.
Thank you, Mervyn. I'm afraid we're going to have to cut most of them up. Huh? No.
Miss Veronica, do you think I could have an extra flower?
Indeed.
Thank you, Miss V. Do not let anyone have this.
Flowers are indeed beautiful to us and the insects. I don't know whether animals appreciate the color of flowers and the smell, but many of them sure do like the fruits that develops from the flowers. Today we are going to learn about the structure of the flower and their functions. There is a wide variety of flowers in nature. The look of a flower mostly depends on what kind of creature helps out with the pollination. If I'm a big insect, I will be looking at plants with big flowers. If I'm a tiny little bug, I might live my whole life inside a flower. There is also a variety of colors that attracts different insects and animals. Now let's be scientists. Let's pick up our flowers, and as couples, we are going to dissect our flowers so as to see the different parts of the flower. We start by removing the sepal first. The sepal is the green outer leaf of the flower in which the flower rests. Now let's remove the petals. That's the colorful part of the flower, which attracts the many birds.
Oh no! All of them! She'll be naked!
No, you mean he'll be naked.
Yes, I guess so. Our flowers look now a bit naked without their colorful clothes on. Let's continue. Next, we remove the stamen. The stamen is the long string called the filament with the yellow powderish anther at the tip of it. The term stamen refers to both the filament and the anther together. It is the male part of the flower. By now, our flower is quite bare indeed. and it leaves just the core of the flower, the most important part. The carpel includes the ovary at the bottom, the style growing out of it upward, and the stigma on top. The term carpel refers to the ovary, style, and stigma. It's the female part of the flower. Class, please place the different parts of the flower on the desk in front of you, and we'll talk about the functions of each part. Starting on the outside of the flower, we have the flower stalk or stem. Obviously, this connects the flower to the stem of the plant and serves to transport nutrients to it from other parts of the plant. At the top of the flower stem is the receptacle. It holds the parts of the flower. The sepals protect the flower while it is developing in the bud and unfolds when the flower with its petals opens. Petals are brightly colored and scented to attract insects and birds. Let's look at the carpel. This is the reproductive part of the flower, and hence also known as the female reproductive organs of the flower. The carpel consists of the ovary, style, and stigma. The ovary contains ovule, and this is where fertilization takes place. The ovule contains the female gametes. The ovary runs upwards as the style, connecting the ovary to the stigma at the end of it. The stigma is the receptive tip of the style, where the pollen lands during the pollination. Now we get the male part of the flower, and it consists of the anther and the filament. The filament holds the anther up to be exposed to agents of pollination. The anther is the yellow tip of the filament and contains pollen sacs with pollen grains. That was the structure and functions of the flower. Mervyn, did you notice that the petals of the flower are neither male nor female?
I guess petals are their clothes, man. There's no necessary. I mean, and both males and females wear clothes to cover themselves up, right?
Yes. So ultimately, it's about the survival of the plant. It's about reproduction.
Viewers, plant reproduction is the production of small new plants. Now, unlike animals that can seek a sexual partner, plants are rooted in the ground. So it needs what we call an agent to do the exchange of material. Some plants have sexual reproduction, and in others, reproduction is asexual. Asexual reproduction simply requires one cell to split into two, giving two identical cells. Identical younger plants are formed without fusion of gametes. Sexual reproduction in plants, though, is where two cells, each with half of the DNA needed, combine and create a living cell. The most distinguishing feature of a plant that reproduces by sexual means is its flowers. They are the plant's reproductive organs. Flowers produce male and female gametes, and the transfer of the male gametes to the female ovules is a process called pollination. A bee might go to one flower, and while it is sucking nectar from it, a few pollen grains might get stuck on its feet or back. If it goes to another flower of the same species, the pollen lands on the stigma. So, it is quite logical that nature helps plants to attract the right agents, such as insects, birds, and animals, to help them to reproduce and survive as a species. The flower produces two kinds of gametophytes, male and female. The mature pollen grain is the male gametophyte. We have seen that the filament and anther together constitute the stamen, the male sex organ. Pollen is produced in the anthers. Flowers usually produce many stamens just inside of the petals. For sexual fusion to take place, the pollen grain must be transported to the stigma, which is a receptive platform on the top of the style. Here, the moist surface causes the pollen grain to grow a tube reaching into the ovary and ovule, where fertilization takes place with the female gametophyte. After pollination occurs, fertilization happens, and the ovules grow into seeds within a fruit. In this way, sexual reproduction is the formation of offspring by the fusion of gametes. Sexual reproduction results in offspring genetically different from the parents. These seeds will later germinate and grow into the next generation. Plants may either self-pollinate or cross-pollinate.
Chai, miss, I find this lesson so fascinating. We really walk past by all these flowers and plants every day. And we have no idea how wonderful they are made to survive.
But I'd like to know more about pollination. I've heard something about self-pollination and cross-pollination.
What was the other one again? Wait, the agents of pollination, man. Can we learn about that too?
Pollination is the process where pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the receptive stigma of the same plant species. Self-pollination is the transfer of pollen from the anther to the receptive stigma within the same flower or flowers of the same plant. And cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen from the anther of one plant to the stigma of the same type of flower but on another plant. Like if I were to be a bee, I would transfer pollen from the anther of this flower to the stigma of that flower, since they belong to the same species. In plants that use insects or other to move pollen from one flower to the next, plants have developed greatly modified flower paths. This is both in order to attract pollinators and to facilitate the movement of pollen from flower to insect and on to the next flower. Many trees and all grasses are wind-pollinated. As such, they have no need for large fancy flowers. Plants have a number of different means to attract pollinators, including color, scent, heat, nectar glands, eatable pollen, and flower shape. Important factors in pollination as the means of sexual reproduction of flowering plants is timing of flowering. The flowers will be most beautiful when the insects, humans, or animals who have to distribute their seed have a need for their nectar or fruit. Another factor is the size or number of flowers produced. Flowers are often planted together in large fields to maximize their visual effect, becoming more noticeable to passing pollinators. It is not only bees that carry out pollination, but in fact the wind, water, insects, animals, and humans are all agents of pollination. All these agents help in different ways to carry pollen from one flower to the next.
Thank you, ma'am. It's so good to hear that people also sometimes do good and positive stuff in nature. Like, it's a change.
Viewers, this concludes today's lesson on reproduction in plants, and it also wraps up our series on biology lessons for this year. Let's recap what we learned today. The flower is the reproductive organ of the plant. The ovary with ovule contains female gametes, and together with the style and stigma form the female reproductive organs of the plant. The stamen consists of the anther and filament, and this is the male part of the flower. Pollination is the process in which pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the receptive stigma of the same plant species. Self-pollination is the transfer of pollen from the anther to the receptive stigma within the same flower or flowers of the same plant. Cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen from the anther to the stigma of another flower on another plant of the same species. Agents of pollination are wind, insects, water, animals, and humans. Now you have one last chance to participate in our SMS competition and win yourself a prize from Namcol and our sponsors. To SMS your answer, just enter the keyword for this program, which is the word flower, and then send as your answer the option A, B, or C to 5003. One SMS costs $3. Here is the question. Which of the following is part of the carpel? A, stamen. B, sepal. C, stigma. It's easy. I know you have it right, and I'm waiting for your SMS. We will announce the winner within 3 days, and if you are the winner, we'll call you to collect your prize at the Namcol Center nearest to you. Thank you for your company watching the series with me. Until next time, bye-bye and best wishes with the exams. Ciao!